When I was growing up, my grandma used to work in a video store. You know, way back in the day of movie rentals and VHS tapes. And for any of you kids out there who don't know what that is, you can look it up. This isn't a damn educational show. Around the same time, my brother and I owned an N64. And whenever a game got too old, or didn't get checked out enough, she got to bring it home and give it to us. And I remember one summer in particular, she drove up to visit us and brought us the goddamn motherload. A box filled with great games. I'm talking Rayman 2, Wetrix, Pokemon Snap. There were a lot of bad games in that box as well. I'm looking at you, Rugrats Scavenger Hunt. There was one game in particular I remember me and my brother fighting over all the time, and that game was Tonic Trouble. I don't even really remember why we both wanted to play this game so bad. Let's find out. Tonic Trouble puts you in the disconnected shoes of Ed, an alien who doesn't have arms and legs, so his hands and feet just kind of float off his body. Speaking of which, this game is made by Ubisoft Montpellier, these guys. Now the reason I bring this up is because they also made Rayman, another limbless character, so I'm beginning to think that someone at Ubisoft just doesn't know how to draw arms and legs. So our hero Ed is a space janitor, and while cleaning this space closet, he runs across a bug and does the complete opposite of his job and makes a mess. Apparently 20 seconds of physical activity and he's already exhausted, so he reaches for a nice cool Mountain Dew to quench his thirst. This is starting to hit a little too close to home. Unfortunately, his soda's gone off a bit, and just like real Mountain Dew, it inadvertently gives life to inanimate objects, which opens the space hatch and causes the can to tumble to Earth. It ends up in the hands of a Viking named Grog, who uses it to bring vegetables to life. I'm trying my hardest to have this plot summary make sense, but it honestly just doesn't make sense to begin with. The manual does a little better job explaining it, but barely any of this is in the actual game. Then we are introduced to the many wonderful characters this game has to offer. First is Agent XYZ, a talking newspaper, or possibly a man holding a newspaper to hide his appearance. I don't know. Then we have Doc, an inventor who will help us on our journey. His daughter, Susie, I think she's supposed to be the sex symbol in the game, but man does that just weird me out. The aforementioned Viking Grog and his right-hand man, the pharmacist, who is apparently running experiments using the can. Why they throw all this information at you now, I have no idea. All these things could have been explained during the course of the game, and it would have been fine. But instead, it feels like you're being forced to memorize all these just in case it comes up on a pop quiz later. With that, Ed heads to Earth and crash lands on a mountaintop. You remember that awesome opening in Sonic Adventure 2 where you snowboard down the street and hit ramps and stuff? This first level's just like that, except bad. You have little to no control over your character as you slide down the mountain. You have to make very slight movements in order to position yourself, otherwise you'll fly across the screen. You're constantly going the same speed. You can't slow down, and the only way to go faster is to hit a boost pad. Yippee! Wait, that's Rayman! Dead. Oof. There are collectibles littered all over this mountain, such as thermometers that increase your health, and these little swirly things that are apparently antidotes, but I can't get any of them to save my life. I'm sure that's not going to come back and bite me later. Once down the mountain, you run into Susie, your love interest in this game. Don't take it badly or anything, but I was expecting someone a bit more, well, less purple. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Lady, I don't know if you've looked in the mirror lately, but you're purple too, racist. She must realize how bad that sounds, because she quickly changes the subject and tells you to go rescue Doc. The first level is the cave that Doc is trapped in, which means tight, enclosed corridors. And this is where one of the game's biggest problems shows up. I'm talking about camera control. My first instinct was that I should use the C buttons to change the camera, but the game just yells at you if you try that. Nope, the only button for camera control is the Z button, and that makes the camera snap to your back. No smooth transition or anything, just a sudden, jarring cut. It makes it really easy to lose your bearings, and you are constantly fighting with it. Take for example, this area from later in the game, where I had to snap the camera multiple times within a few seconds of each other, just to see what was up ahead. Luckily, for the most part, the platforming itself is fairly standard, and most of the levels play out like you'd expect. Until about halfway through, that is. Agent Newspaperman tells you that the dock's popcorn machine is broken, and we'll need to fix it in order to feel its amazing effects. Oh yeah, I see what the problem is. It appears you built an extra pipe for no reason, and the block that you used to cover it came loose. So with that fixed, I head off to get a snack. So remember when I was joking about the game being sponsored by Mountain Dew? Yeah, I guess I was wrong. Because it's literally fucking sponsored by Newman's own popcorn. Look, that's the logo right there. I bet they sure are glad they scored the exclusive rights to this turd. Eating the popcorn turns you into Super Ed, which basically means you Hulk out, are immune to damage, and are much stronger. So I'm pretty sure I figured out the doc's secret ingredient for his popcorn. Then the level pretty much goes back to normal. Dodge flaming bread fired from living toasters, beat the shit out of a robotic suitcase, you know, normal stuff that happens every day here on Earth. After bashing the suitcase's skull in, we get our first weapon, a stick. How intimidating. Then we head over and free the dock. Wait, holy shit, does this guy have a third eye growing out of the top of his head? I've really got to stop questioning things in this game. It's no use. He tells us that we need to collect 6 of 6 different random items so that he can make an invention to get us to Grog's fortress. First up, we need to collect 6 springs, which have been taken to the headquarters of the killer vegetables. Apparently, instead of living in a sun-filled area like you'd expect for plants, they decide to set up shop in a deep, dark cave. Hey, that sounds just like the last level. At the start, XYZ reminds you to keep picking up the antidotes because you'll need them later. In fact, every time you see him, he brings up that you'll eventually need 160 of them. So I go out of my way to collect every one I can, except it appears that some of them you can't get on the first run, so I guess I'll have to come back for them later. Once you collect the 6 springs, the level just kind of ends. No boss fight, nothing. The door opens and there's Susie, who somehow got to the end of the level before I did. Why the hell didn't she just get the springs? Maybe she's the real bad guy. She stole all the items that Doc needs, went through the level ahead of Ed, and then waits for him at the end to show up. How else do you explain how she got there? I give the Doc the springs he wants and he upgrades my stick by drilling a hole in it and turning it into one of the worst weapons I've ever used in a video game. A blowpipe. And as we head to the North Plane to collect 6 propellers, I'll explain why. There are bad guys all over this game who will shoot at you, and the only way to fight back is to shoot at them. That sounds fair. Except you can't move and shoot at the same time. Okay, well you can, but it will only work if they're on the same eye level as you, which of course, they never are. So every time you take one of these guys out, you are going to take a hit. Always. Another thing, why is every goddamn level so dark? The overworld is nice and bright, but every level so far has been a dark cave area. Talk about variety. Imagine if you played Super Mario 64, and every single level was Hazy Maze Cave or Jolly Roger Bay. Don't get me wrong, those levels are nice, but every now and then you need a bomb on Battlefield to break things up. Hey, at least this level has a boss. I mean, kind of. He dies in 2 hits, doesn't fight back, and is reused from this point on as a basic enemy, but I guess it's better than nothing. And Susie's back too to slather on that sexual tension. After giving the Doc his propellers, he gives you an even worse upgrade than before. The ability to fly. That sounds like it'd be great, but like most things in this game, it's not. The controls are terrible, even worse than the sledding level from the beginning. They give you a training course to get used to the controls, using the tried and true Superman 64 gameplay. Oof, classic. Then, they somehow manage to make it even worse. They combine flying and shooting to create the ultimate garbage gameplay mechanic. Jesus, I thought this was supposed to be a kid's game! Heading into the canyon, this time to collect jumping stones. Yeah, whatever, I'm still not questioning it. Oh, and the canyon? Yeah, you guessed it. It's a dark fucking cave. Except this one is entirely built around flying, and it's easily one of the most unforgivable stages in the entire game. If you happen to mess up, it's an instant death and you have to start over. I'm not going to talk about this level. I hate it. This time, the dock gives me a bottle to wear on my head so I can swim underwater. And it's even worse. Actually, it's pretty good. I don't know how they somehow managed to make the underwater controls work. I was just expecting them to be terrible. The dock needs us to get feathers from the tundra, and it's actually a normal level again. It still takes place in a cave, but at least this time it's a little more colorful than the last one. I'm sure you know how it works by now. Collect the 6 items, no boss, and another meeting with Susie who wants us to tickle her with the Whoa, Susie, this is a kid's game, remember? Dial it back a bit. I'm just going to touch on the next 2 levels, because they're forgettable and nothing important happens in either of them. First, you have to collect dominoes from the reverse pyramid, and then piggy banks from the pressure cooker. So that's it for the normal levels. After collecting 5 piggy banks, a mushroom steals the 6th one, and it's at this point that little number 160 comes back into play. Gotta love artificial padding in video games. So I have to go back through the levels with my newly gained powers in order to get enough to actually unlock the next part. Once you finally collect 160 antelopes, antidotes, you get to fight the mushroom guy. It's the easiest boss fight ever. You barely even have to move while he attacks you. The hardest part is not falling asleep while standing around. Finally, we have all the piggy banks and the dock has completed his invention. A giant fly swatter? That's what he invented? In what world do you take springs, propellers, rocks, feathers, dominoes, and a fucking piggy bank and make a fly swatter? The hell were you expecting? Now you get to fight Grog. The final confrontation isn't much more entertaining than the mushroom guy. You mostly stand around until he decides to drop you into lava, then you fly around and shoot at targets to raise the platform back up. You finally shoot at Grog in his giant armor, and repeat until the game ends. So it turns out that Grog didn't like having his powers, and he was driven mad by the can. But he dies anyway, so who the fuck cares? With the can safely back in our possession, Ed proceeds to fuck around with it for like 5 minutes. Finally, Susie comes up and gives our hero a big old kiss, and Ed buries his head in her cans. She then confesses her love for Ed, telling him that she doesn't blame him for what happens, and that maybe, just maybe, the Earth needed its revenge because of the way we treated it, and from now on, we'll take care of the world and stop littering. Really? Really? That's the point of this game, is to tell people not to litter? The tone in this game makes no sense. No, nothing in this game makes sense. This game hurt to play. As far as gameplay is concerned, there are worse games out there, but everything in this game is forgettable and confusing. There's barely a plot, and it gives me a headache just trying to remember anything about it. It literally depressed me to write this review, because I couldn't think of anything enjoyable about my 6 hours with Tonic Trouble. I don't even know why they made this game. The same team that made Tonic Trouble made Rayman 2 less than 2 months later. Why would you release a crappy game when you're going to release a much better game in less than 59 days? Unsurprisingly, they never made a Tonic Trouble 2. Ubisoft said it wasn't a profitable IP for them. Even they knew it was shit. If I could go back in time, I'd kick myself in the nuts for ever arguing with my brother over this game. Hey there, thanks for sticking with this video. Hopefully it wasn't as painful to watch as this game was to play. Maybe you even liked it. If you did, be sure to click that subscribe button. Liking doesn't hurt either, just saying. And whoa! It looks like there's 2 more videos to click on. I wonder what those are like. Did you know you could follow me on Twitter and get sporadic updates and pictures of my cat? I know! What more could you want? Alright, I'm done shilling my stuff. Until the next video, peace.